Good noon and welcome to BYJU'S exam prep channel that is dedicated to your success as a CAT aspirant. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe to it because we keep on bringing a lot of live as well as recorded sessions for you so that your journey towards that 99 percentile becomes easy. My name is Vikrant and I am your personal coach for all things related to English and communication skills. I also dabble into the psychological aspects of the preparation, and I, in fact, believe that they are rather important and often overlooked. So, someday we probably also sit down and work on that. But today we are starting the series called 500 Most Important CAT Questions. So, in your preparation, there are quite a few things that are important. You need to go ahead and acquire the concepts, learn some techniques, build on certain skills. But it is extremely important for you to keep on practicing questions so that you are able to track the journey, so that you're able to see the distinct progress that you make through your efforts. And this is my way of ensuring that you get a bit of practice with me, where through discussing these questions, we'd at least be able to see what is working, what is not working, and whether we are deviating away from the defined path or the right technique or not. And in fact, if you get a question wrong and you ask about the issue, you discuss it in the chat window, we'd also be able to go ahead and look at the accurate, look at the diagnosis for that particular issue. So that's the goal behind this particular session. And I can understand that a lot of you were CAT 23 aspirants and you are perhaps preparing for SNAP, ZAT, and all those upcoming exams. So I have not forgotten about you. So I'm kind of picking up the questions which are very important for anybody who's starting out his CAT prep. At the same time, these are questions that you'd find immensely useful when it comes to writing your exams like the SNAP and the ZAT. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with a positive thought, with a thought that I believe will aid your preparation further. So, continuous effort, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking our potential. I cannot say this enough, but whenever somebody asks me, okay, tell me one thing that will be the key to entire CAT preparation, then that one thing is self belief. If you give me the luxury of adding one more word to it, you say, okay, tell me two things, then the second thing that I talk about is going to be consistency. Can you show up every day and work? So anybody who is consistent, irrespective of where you start from, considering that you have a good almost 12 months with you, you definitely be able to make a great headway. Good noon, Navneet and Sunny. So let's dive into it now. So here are the directions to your first 5 questions. So you know that when it comes to the CAT exam, uh, what all do we get in the CAT exam really? So we get reading comprehension and we get paragraph based questions. So for the last 3 years, we get 4 passages with 4 questions each under this category. And for the last 5 odd years, when it comes to paragraph based questions, the varieties that we get are parajumbles, which has always been a part of the CAT with an exception of CAT 2006. Then you have these para summary questions. They have once again been doing heavy duty for a long time. Then there is this question type called paragraph odd one out. And finally, a question called paragraph completion. So this is what we have been getting in our exams so far. So parajumbles, very important. In fact, even the other question types. So my goal, so I'm not touching upon RC today, but I will dive into a couple of these varieties plus critical reasoning, which is in a way a precursor to reading comprehension. And by doing this, we'd also be able to ensure that those of you who are preparing for SNAP are also able to answer these questions and benefit through the practice that we get. Now, in the CAT exam, these questions are non-multiple choice questions. Okay, so I once again take you through the directions once, please. So these in the CAT exam, they are non-multiple choice questions, but in all the other exams, they are MCQs. So today we will work with multiple choice questions. And if you're a CAT aspirant, this is a nice place to start with, right? So you start easy and then gradually we will go ahead and increase the difficulty level by bringing in non-MCQs. And if you are absolutely new to this, parajumbles are to be treated more as a puzzle where all the sentences, if you read them carefully, you would notice that there are these clues that are scattered around, and your job is to use those clues to arrive at the answers. So here is your question number one. Four sentences followed by four answer choices. Why don't you go ahead and tell me the best answer choice for this particular question? Let's see. So have you managed to arrive at the answer? So if I look at it, what does the sentence A tell me? It talks about fossil grasses and how old the fossils are, and a guess that they probably evolved a little earlier. So grasses. Look at B. B is talking about land plants and says that there were no flowers for over 2/3 of that time. Then C says the equally familiar grasses. So where does this go? Equally familiar grasses, right? And then flowering plants only appeared in the middle of the dinosaur era. So this connects it with sentence B. So B and D would typically here form what we call a mandatory pair. Where do we have BD? BD is present only in option D. So we can go ahead and choose that as an answer and move on. Now, had it been a non-multiple choice question, we would not have stopped here. We would have to obviously go ahead and dig deeper into various clues and then work through it and then solve. So in this case, we definitely got some idea-based clues. More on that later when we have a dedicated sessions on parajumbles. But here is question number two. So read all these sentences carefully and tell me what you would like to mark as your answer. Go ahead. Oh, Vivek, how are you doing? आर्यन, अरे नवनीत सनी गायब हो गए भाई, तुम लोग, तुमने आंसर्स तो दिए ही नहीं. So sentence A basically defines mandate of heaven. Then sentence B starts with in other words. So you know that in other words shows paraphrasing, right? A similar idea should be present in a sentence that comes immediately before. Right. So, in other words, the mandate of heaven gave divine ruling authority to kings that lived a moral life, administered justice, whatever. Okay. Then see, whereas medieval Europeans legitimized their ruling authority by the divine right of kings, Confucian societies used a similar concept called the mandate of heaven. So, this is the sentence where mandate of heaven is getting introduced. Then D has this word at the beginning, however, it differed from. So, however is a clue. However tells you that what comes right before it has to be contrasting in nature, has to be opposite in nature. Then there is this pronoun, it differed from the divine right of kings. What differed from? In that heaven's endorsement depends upon the virtuous conduct of the ruler. So now if I start combining, there are some things that become obvious. In C, mandate of heaven is being introduced. In A, it is being defined. So I need to definitely put A afterwards. Now, if I talk about B, in other words, mandate of heaven gave divine ruling authority to kings that lived a moral life, administered justice, protected the welfare of his people. Then you notice D says that heaven's endorsement depends upon the virtuous conduct. So all these other things that you see, moral life, administered justice, and all these, they are basically what? Virtuous conduct. So uh, D is the sentence that justifies the use of in other words. So we need to have D plus B. So where do we get DB? I see this here. There is nowhere else where I have DB. B can be ruled out because A is coming before C. A can also be ruled out because A is coming before C. So between C and D, because we are getting DB in option D, let's go ahead and mark that as our answer. So D should be the right. You've managed to establish that relationship, you can go ahead and form those connections subsequently. Here is the next one. This is trickier as compared to the previous question, but I'm sure once you pay close attention. Okay, so if we look at it, that wasteful truth has been triumphantly overcome. Which wasteful truth are we talking about? Losing women. So that helps you connect C and B together and form a mandatory pair. Where do we have CB? We have it in options B and C. So options A and D get ruled out at this juncture. So between the other two, which one should we go ahead and choose? Aryan has made up his mind and has shared his answer. How about the rest of you? So what is the difference? AD, before or after? So look at D. D talks about, yet despite this monumental advance, the monumental advance has to be what? In C and B. So D has to come after C and B. And if D has to come after, option B can also be eliminated, and therefore C can be chosen as our answer. Okay, here is the next one. Question number 4. Go ahead and tell me what you think. I have some issue with my table today. So what's your take on question number 4? This is even trickier. So first was a warm up, second was okay, third was a tad bit more difficult, fourth is tougher still. So let us see what you do here. This is one clue. Which victory? Those warriors. Which warriors? A few decades earlier. Earlier compared to what? So these are the clues that we can use to unravel the mystery of this particular parajumble. Okay, Navneet, I see that. Anyone else? So you notice this a few decades earlier is this mid 5th century BC. They were worried a few decades earlier they had helped to rout the Persian invaders of Greek. So that earlier establishes some connection on the timeline. Those warriors mentioned in B. So you see those warriors here. These are the citizen soldiers. And therefore we need to have D plus B. So let us see if we find the answer. So we need to have DB. We need to have D coming after C. So this is ruled out. So where does A go? See, both of them have CDB. Where does A go? A says not long after their victory. So you notice the victory is mentioned in DB. So their victory, so there as well as victory, both of these require that A comes after. And therefore, option A can be ruled out and we can go ahead and choose D as our answer. So Navneet was absolutely spot on. And here is one last parajumble, slightly longer, but I personally like the longer varieties. The reason, the longer a parajumble, the bigger a parajumble, the lengthier a parajumble, the higher the probability of finding something that is Finding clues basically, right? So go ahead, have a look at this and tell me what the answer should be. Mm-hmm. Navneet, that's pretty close. Okay, think of it. B introduces Parasaurolophus. C tells you a little more about them, whereas D just mentions Parasaurolophus. So what do you think? Where should I put D? Before B and C or after B and C? Where would this go? You need to introduce an entity first. So if you already say, okay, you put AD, so you have Parasaurolophus is a rarity in this regard. This is an absolutely spot on thing. A and D must go together because this regard refers to whatever is mentioned in A up here. Uh, but then they should come after B, not before. And if they should come after B, I think a better answer will actually be BCAD. So is the connection between C and A very smooth? Not really, but we have to pick up the best option from the given lot, and that is why we should prefer C over the other answer choices. So I hope that you learned a bit more about these parajumbles. Sagnik, absolutely right. And now let me take you over to two questions which I believe uh, are questions that you should master at the earliest, and that is para summary. So para summary teaches you comprehension. Para summary prepares you for reading comprehension. It sort of gives you some of the foundational skill sets that make you better at RC, and thus I would typically go ahead and prioritize para summary over a lot of other question types. So here is question number 6. So the paragraph is on this screen. I hope you read the directions. In case you haven't, please do that. So you have a paragraph followed by four alternate summaries. Your job is to pick up the best summary of the lot. So here is the paragraph. I am giving you 30 seconds, after which I'll take you over to the answer choices. Now, Aryan, it's all right. As I said at the beginning, I don't know whether you were there or not, but I've picked up questions that are going to be useful for anybody who's writing SNAP as well as that. And they are, of course, very useful for anybody who's starting his preparation for CAT 24. So even this will help you in one way or the other. You notice even in a parajumble question, it's a useful skill to possess where you read the sentences and are able to take out the crux. That helps you get that detached overview sort of a thing about every sentence and put it somewhere or the other. Okay, so here are the answer choices. Which one do you think represents the summary in the best possible manner? All right, so which one should we pick up? So if we look at it, what is the core argument that the author is building? The author is saying that, okay, even the large hydro power dams, which are considered environmentally safe, lead to a lot of emissions. And in order to support that point, the author mentions two key things: vegetation that goes underwater rots and releases methane. And then the last sentence also introduces the fact that you also end up releasing those harmful gases during the construction of the dam, which can take years. So, which option captures it the best? So, C says hydropower project can check. So you notice, to say that dams flood vast vegetated areas is one thing. To say that they cause flooding is another, because flooding would normally be interpreted as they are a factor or a causal force when it comes to bringing floods to various areas. So C gives you a very subtle distortion. Moreover, it misses out on that second key point. So I'd say this is a factual distortion, and there is one deletion as well where it does not talk about the harms caused by the construction, if we have to look at it that way. So, compared to C, in that sense, B is going to be a better summary, which is they release harmful gases. So, you cannot call them clean source of energy. That is the core, that is the main idea that you have here. And that is why B should be a better answer for us. What's wrong? Am I not? Okay, here is the next question. Question number 7 on your screen. Go ahead and give me the answer. So, read the paragraph once and then we'll move on. Giving you some extra time to take out all the key ideas. And in case you are done, changing to the next slide in 5 seconds. There you go. So use the seeker to go back to the paragraph. And after that, my advice, use elimination. Don't look for the right summary. Just see if you find any shortcoming in any of those answer choices and start eliminating this. Options, guys, options. So shall we start eliminating? So what are the key ideas that you were left with in your mind when you started solving it? So one of the things that we see is that if I read the very first sentence, when a language seems especially telegraphic, it is usually because enough adults learnt it at a certain stage in its history. That given the difficulty of learning a new language after childhood, it kind of stripped down schoolroom version of itself. So basically, uh, telegraphic is interpreted in a unique way, right? Telegram, where everything is captured in a very pithy way, it somehow relates to that. So the two key things are telegraphic is language which is very concise, and second, language becomes that concise when people learn it late in their adulthood as opposed to learning it when they are young. Uh, then we know that all languages are busier than they need to be. Then there is an example of Indonesia given where a language was imposed on a lot of non-native speakers, and as a result it's the colloquial version which got streamlined, right? Grammar became tidier, those kind of things. So if I go over to the answer choices now, I would notice that option A, it is not the main idea of the paragraph. The paragraph goes on to talk about the forces or the key factor that leads to that transition. So A misses out on that. B gets a lot of this right. How about C? When more adults who are non-native speakers are forced over time to learn language, its colloquial forms become cryptic. This is the opposite. It in fact becomes less busy and more straightforward. So C can easily be ruled out. Then D, in languages that have been spoken for centuries over vast regions, time and repetition wear words out, and what wears away is often a nugget of meaning. Nah, once again, it is not, no discussion of nugget of meaning, etc. So the best answer choice that we actually have here is B. And with that, let's move over to this one last question, which is essentially a critical reasoning question. Uh, Critical reasoning is a key skill set for the CAT. And these direct critical reasoning questions are a staple in exams like SNAP, in exams like ZAT. In SNAP, you'd find it with the logical in the logical reasoning section. In ZAT, they are of course clubbed with the verbal ability part. So here is the question, along with the four answer choices for you. Read it carefully and then tell me. I'll just simplify one of these answer choices for you. Okay, so I've gone on to make it simpler. Hopefully, that will enable you to answer this with relative ease. Let's go ahead and answer this. Okay, so what do we do in these questions? The first thing that we do is we look at what exactly it is that is being asked. So the above statement implies the following except. It basically means that three of these can be concluded on the basis of the information provided in the paragraph, and one cannot be. So let's look at what the paragraph says. Randomness has to be dealt with successfully to ensure a better control over one's life. Before one can deal effectively with randomness, one must acknowledge its existence. So let us check. A, randomness can be dealt with effectively. Yes, that's what it is hinting at. So this is true. B, if one acknowledges the existence of randomness, one will be able to deal with it effectively. Are we sure? The second sentence says, before you can deal with it effectively, you must acknowledge it. So does that mean that if you acknowledge it, you will be able to deal with it? It is a necessary precursor. It's like if you want to succeed in your CAT exam, you must join BYJU'S exam prep. Does that mean that BYJU'S exam prep, barely the act of joining will lead to the success? No, it is just one part of the matrix then. Right? There can be other things required. So this you will be able to is something that cannot be determined on the basis of the information supplied. So that's can't say. See, one can deal effectively with randomness only if one acknowledges its existence. True. So the paragraph tells you that if you do not acknowledge it, you would not be able to deal with it. And D also basically states that. So that's also true. So A, C, and D can be inferred. B cannot be inferred, and that is why our answer to this question must be option B. Must, remember, must is a prerequisite. If you don't do it, you cannot move on. So D says that. Only if is another way of phrasing it. Only if shows something which is necessary but insufficient. Sorry for throwing all this jargon here, but once you go through areas like logical consistency, interpreting sentences that use stuff like only if will become a cakewalk for you. Okay, so the correct answer here is option B. So I hope that you enjoyed working with me. and that you learned something from these questions. If that is the case, don't forget to give this video a like. And I don't know where it is coming from. Hang on. Why do I have these things here? That is a little strange. We are not supposed to have these. क्या हो रहा है? कहाँ से आ रही हैं ये सारी extraneous चीजें? Okay, so if you want to learn about these specific topics, you can experiment with our website. You can unlock a 3-day free trial for yourself, and that will give you this opportunity to attend some live classes. And if you really enjoy it and you need more help, do consider joining our comprehensive program for CAT 2024. We have produced stellar results in the past, so I'm sure if you join that, you'd also find it very useful. So that's it from me today. Until I see you next, stay safe, stay focused, and stay in touch using any of these places. And make sure that you keep working hard in order to move towards your goal. Have a great weekend ahead. Not weekend, it's Monday, right? The weekend flew away. So have a great week ahead. Until we meet next, take care.